Hello, loved ones. This is Matt Stevens, and I hope you're doing super fantastic as always. I'm doing very well, and I know I often talk about programming and that how we mortal beings in this realm are really an immortal soul, an immortal spirit, even on the outside, jacked into here through the pineal gland, through the third eye, so that we can then have an experience in this physical realm through the avatar, right? And that the third eye, the pineal gland, is basically your antenna, your two-way antenna between your true self on the outside and the physical body. And it's all its programming, right? I'm getting into that. And what it's been programmed to believe, which shapes your personality and belief systems and all of that. And we are programmed, this brain is programmed through a lot of ways. In a lot of cases, it's our upbringing. But that is also, in most of the time anyway, that includes our religious upbringing, right? How we are raised to believe things to be through religion. I mean, it's a lot. It's through the media and the news media and all of that. And when they put those images out there to the world, and then millions of people are seeing it, feeding their energy to it, it only strengthens it. It only makes that more permanent, because millions of people are feeding their energy to it. So, like when people talk, and this is an aside, but when people talk about these rituals or these spells even that are being done during big events such as the Super Bowl, things like that, there's a lot of truth to that, because you have millions of people watching, directing their attention and subsequently their energy to whatever is going on there. And they are strengthening that. They are powering it up by feeding that much energy into this one singular event, whatever it may be. And if it's some kind of ritual or whatever, it would make sense to do it that way. It just would. So, but getting back to programming. Our programming through, and I have my notes here, dear loved ones, so if you see me looking down, that's what it's all about. It's just my notes. And by the way, since we're on the subject, because we're not, if you have not yet hit the like button, please do that for me. I would so appreciate it. It really makes a difference. It just does, right? Feed the algorithm, right? It's just part of how things are these days. So yes, please like. If you have not yet subscribed, please do that. Comment, even if it's just to say hi or whatever the case may be. I would really appreciate you doing that for me. Anywho, so getting back to this. Programming through media, but also religion. We are fed into our brains is fed how things are supposed to be, or how things, whatever the case may be. Maybe it's, in a lot of cases, it's a moral structure. But it's also a lot of fear-based programming. If you don't act a certain way, if you don't do a certain thing, if you don't follow a certain path, then you are going to be damned for all eternity to something. And that is, when people really believe that, that's some serious amounts of fear. That is enough to get anybody to fall in line. That's enough to get anybody to just be a good little human, right? And do the things that we need you to do. That we being the controllers, of course, your loved one. So what do they need us to do? As always, they need us to produce, consume, and obey. Produce, consume, obey. And that's that. And when we have people programmed to believe that if they do not fall in line, it's going to get ugly for them, right? Now, some of the proofs of that, I believe, are NDEs, near-death experiences. I have had my own, and it was profound. However, I don't know how to explain it, but I can explain the experience, yes, but I was raised in a Christian background. Now, at this time of my life, I didn't really follow anything. I mean, I guess I still kind of believed that, but really I didn't. I had no real direction in my spiritual life at that time. Of course, this experience shook that all the way up, all the way up, dear loved one. But my experience was in what is called the black or the void. But calling it the void is very misleading because it does appear to be void. It's completely black. It appears to be nothing. However, later when I was reflecting on it, I was like, wow, that wasn't nothing. It was what I would refer to as the quantum field, meaning it's unmanifested energy. It's where anything that does manifest, that's the pool of energy that it comes from. Or if we really want to look at it in a hard computer simulation frame, we can do that too. That would be the part of the hard drive that has not been used yet. That would be the part of the hard drive in the computer that is potential. It can be used for anything, but it hasn't been used yet. It's free space, free energy, free memory that hasn't been occupied with anything manifest yet. But these NDEs that other people experience, such as Christians believe that when they die, they're going to have some kind of judgment, right? But a lot of Christians who have had NDEs, they come back and say that they met their relatives. Maybe the relatives were greeting them, and it's always something loving. Well, I shouldn't say that because there have been some who came back with horrific stories. But anyway, it's always something to do with their religious programming. What they were programmed all their lives to believe is what's going to happen. Maybe heaven, hell, whatever the case may be. But in a lot of cases, they see Jesus or the relatives or maybe even St. Peter at the pearly gates. Point is, they always see something that they have been programmed to believe is going to happen. Now, they come back with a renewed sense of, I'm on the right side. The Christian faith is accurate. It's right. It's true. It's what I experienced when I was out of my body in that near-death state. But the problem with that is other faiths, people of other traditions would disagree. For example, Hindus, in a lot of cases of NDEs, have reported an encounter with, and please don't, and I've got a lot of friends who are Hindus. By the way, I got a lot of friends at work who are Hindus. So if I mess this up, these pronunciations, don't hate me. Anyway, so Yamaraj, Yamraj, and based on my understanding of these words, that's probably how that would be pronounced. Yamaraj, the god of death, or his messengers, which would be the Yamaduts. Now, I'm almost positive I messed that up, so I'm not even going to say that anymore. So we're just going to go with Hindus report meeting Yamaraj, the god of death, or his messengers. They also report having a life and or karma review to determine whether or not they need to come back and work off some more karma or whatever the case may be, or if they should go ahead and move on to the next level. They have that review and that determination is made. And obviously they came back. Now, in some cases, they may come back in another form, hence, through reincarnation. But in these cases, they came back in the same form they were left in. That's why they had the near-death experience, not the full-on. They didn't take the N off. It wasn't the death experience. It was the near-death experience. That's one of the things, and here's another aside for you, dear loved one. That's one of the things, it kind of irritates me a little bit, and this is because I have experienced it for myself. I do not like it when people say, when I died, this happened, or I died, and this. You didn't die. You were near death, and you may have experienced that realm, because I firmly believe that I did. However, as long as this avatar is still kicking, it didn't happen. Not in this body, anyway. So there's that. But it's just a mild little nuisance. I'm like, I feel like sometimes they're being a little overly dramatic when they say, when I died, this happened. Like, well, first of all, you didn't die because here you are. So anyway, and not to toot my horn, but if anybody can claim that, I would, because I was fully there, right? And as a matter of fact, while that was happening, there were paramedics working on my body and had given up, right? They had said, well, can't save them all. This guy's just gone. But then I twitched or jerked. They said I did, so I kicked my leg. We'll go with that. And they were like, oh, try him again. So they did. And then I came back. So I was not fully pronounced dead, but they had given up on trying to bring me back until something else happened. But anywho, so that's what the Hindus believe. And that's what actually they come back and report that they did experience. And then there's the Buddhists. I love the Buddhists. I do. Because when I had that experience, I was like, look, that's not what I would have expected to happen. But it is what I experienced. And that's what put me on this whole path in the first place, is what was that I experienced. Now, I have found that the Buddhists, what they describe is most, it resembles what I experienced closest, right? That makes sense. I'm not a Buddhist, not at all. There's a lot of things I don't like about Buddhism, but so I'm not going. But I do very much appreciate how they describe that state, because it's like, I'm like, yeah, that's spot on. That's exactly what I saw. And I had no previous knowledge of that. But I was also, in that time of my life, not at all spiritual, right? But anyway, so the Buddhists, they believe that they encounter figures from their tradition. And they say that because they really don't believe in a God, right? There's just figures from their tradition, like the Buddha. Or they also have visions of heavens, yes, heavens, or hells, or what is referred to as the Pure Lands. They also have insights into impermanence and non-attachment, which those are things that are learned and trained, meditated on in the Buddhist tradition for their entire lives. So it's like, well, that's what they were programmed to believe they're going to experience. So that is what they experience. Now, people in the Islamic tradition, they often see deceased relatives. They report back to a loving presence. And Sufi influenced Muslims, they a lot of times they report that they met Muhammad, the messenger, the prophet. They believe that they met Muhammad, and so, I mean, I guess the point I'm getting at is that's what they would have been programmed to believe they're going to experience. There are a lot of similarities among all NDEs, though, regardless of what tradition they come from, or no tradition. Atheists and agnostics, and I really overpronounce that agnostic part because there are Gnostics, which I am a very big fan of. I love the Gnostics. And then there's the agnostics, right? So there's that. But even among all of them, in a lot of cases, there is something similar, right? Either it's the void experience, what I had, or a being of light, such as God. And this happens among all traditions, right? But cultural filters have shaped the details. Now it's like, well, then, so does that, you may be like, well, okay, well then, Matt, does that mean that we're just, whatever we're programmed to believe is what we're going to experience? It's like, well, yes and no. Yes, and that's what you're going to experience right away, in the immediate time after you go into that experience. You see, I believe that I was placed into the quantum field, right? Or as the Gnostics would call it, the chaos, or just the void, if you want to go there. But it's not void. It's not. It's just unmanifested energy. But I believe I was placed in there. It's kind of a timeout. It's like, look, you're not going anywhere just yet. Just chill over there for a minute. And by the way, you're going to have a very profound experience there, and it's going to completely change your path, which it did. Anyway. But there are cultural filters that shape the details of what people experience immediately after crossing that boundary. And that's what I believe the programming is. So they will have people who do cross over temporarily and then come back, and then they will report, this tradition is correct. What I've been taught is right. And I've got to go and tell the world that Christianity is the only way. But then there's Hindus who come back and say, no. What I experienced is correct. And I've got to tell the world that the Hindu tradition is correct. You see, this can get complicated. But, dear loved one, that's why we have to separate ourselves from the programming that's going on in the world. We have to separate ourselves from that so that we go inward on our own journey and use our discernment, of course, and find the truth for ourselves. And I avoid using the words your truth and my truth and his truth and her truth. There's only one truth. As complicated as it may be, there is only one truth. Now, probably what the case is that everybody is both correct and incorrect at the same time. What is experienced on the other side and then brought back may really just be half the story. That is only what we expect to see. We can maybe look at it as that's to reduce the shock of what you're about to experience. So that way you can experience what you expected to see, and then the shock of all this won't be quite so bad. But then they ease you into the actual reality. But anyway, dear loved ones, I just wanted to point that out because so many people go, I think they get their programming and then they just look for reinforcement for it. And you know, if you look for something, you're going to find it. No matter what we do, no matter how we look at this, when the bigger telescopes we build and we point them out into space, looking for what's out there, when we go looking, we always find it. We find what we're looking for. When we're looking for justification for a belief system, we're going to find it. But how about if you stopped looking for a justification for a belief system and just be? Just achieve that state of being. That's what I learned in that quantum state and during that NDE. That there is a state of pure being. It's a stillness, but at the same time it's not. It's energetic. It's as Itzhak Bentov showed us about the absolute or God. There is that vibration that is so fast that it becomes a thin, straight line. That is that's the all. That's when it becomes just being. It's both infinitely energetic and infinitely at rest at the same time. Yes, it is a paradox. No, it doesn't make sense. That's what a paradox is, dear loved one. But anyway, I wanted to bring this up. I think it's very important, especially for those of us who are exploring the nature of reality or exploring a spiritual awakening. Sometimes we have to cut away our beliefs that we have been programmed to believe. Stop looking outside of ourselves for the answers and begin looking inside for the answers. Go inward. Meditation is your best friend when you're doing these things. But anyway, dear loved one, I'm going to keep this shorter. Well, I mean, about the same time I always do, but I try not to go too long on these videos. But anyway, dear loved one, yes, please hit the like button if you have not yet done so. Please subscribe. Please comment and all that good stuff. Besides that, that's what I got for you. I love you. I really do. And I will be back directly.